He'd been working late a lot, blaming a big project at the auto shop, but he'd always come home with that same easy smile. Had I missed something? The woman's face burned into my mind, her smile taunting me. I wanted to tear the photo apart, but I couldn't. It was a piece of him, a piece I didn't understand. The next morning, I drove to Hannah's apartment, the photo tucked in my purse. She was in her kitchen stirring coffee when I slapped the picture on the counter. "Who is she?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I meant. Hannah froze her eyes, flicking to the photo. "Lauren, calm down," she said, but her hesitation told me she knew something. "Just tell me." I pressed my hands, clenching. She sighed, setting her mug down. "Her name's Lily. She was a friend of Nathan's from years ago. That's all." But her voice wavered, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Years ago," I snapped. "This is from 2 years ago, Hannah. Were they still friends? Did you know her?" She shifted, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "I met her once, okay? It was nothing. Nathan loved you." Her defensiveness only fueled my anger. If it was nothing, why didn't he tell me? Why hide this? Hannah shook her head, like I was overreacting. But her silence was an answer. She knew more than she was saying, and it felt like a betrayal, not just from Nathan, but from her too. I left her apartment, my mind racing. Back home, I returned to the garage this time, noticing a filing cabinet tucked in the corner, its lock gleaming like the padlock on the door. Another barrier. Another secret. I ran my hand over it, my anger mixing with a sick curiosity. What else had Nathan kept from me? The photo of him and Lily was just the start, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was in that cabinet would change everything. I gripped the toolbox, the photo still inside, and felt the first real crack in the trust I'd built my life on. I drove to Caleb's house the next morning, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The photo of Nathan and Lily burned a hole in my purse, and the locked filing cabinet in the garage haunted my thoughts. I needed answers, and Caleb, Nathan's older brother, was my best shot. The hour-long drive through Ohio's flat fields gave me too much time to think. I kept picturing Nathan's late nights in the garage, his vague excuses about tinkering with car parts. I'd trusted him so completely, and now every memory felt like a lie. Caleb lived in a modest brick house on the edge of Dayton with a patchy lawn and a basketball hoop rusting in the driveway. He opened the door, his broad face breaking into a tired smile. "Lauren, good to see you," he said, pulling me into a quick hug. But his eyes narrowed when he saw my expression. "Everything okay?" I didn't answer, just followed him inside where the smell of burnt toast hung in the air. We sat at his kitchen table, a scratched oak thing covered with mail and coffee mugs. I pulled out the photo and slid it across to him. "Who is she, Caleb?" My voice was steady, but my heart raced. He picked it up, his brow furrowing, and for a moment he just stared. Then he let out a nervous chuckle, rubbing the back of his neck. "That's, our cousin Rachel, from a family reunion a while back." His words came too fast and he wouldn't look at me. "Don't lie to me," I said, leaning forward. "Hannah already told me her name's Lily. I need the truth." Caleb's smile faded, and he set the photo down like it was fragile. "Okay, look," he said, his voice low. "Lily was someone Nathan knew a long time ago. Before you. That's all I know." But his hands fidgeted, and I could tell he was holding back. I pressed harder. "This photo is from 2 years ago, Caleb. We were married." "What was he doing with her?" he sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I don't know the details, Lauren. Nathan, he was private. You know that." His evasiveness lit a spark of anger in me. "Private," I snapped. "He had a locked garage I wasn't allowed in. Now I find this photo, and you're acting like it's nothing. What aren't you telling me?" Caleb shifted in his chair, his eyes darting to the hallway where his wife Elise was humming in another room. Finally, he leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "Nathan borrowed money from me sometimes, a few hundred here and there. Said it was for car repairs, stuff for the garage. I didn't ask questions. My stomach twisted. Money Nathan never mentioned financial trouble. I handled our budget, paid the bills, and we always seemed fine. How much, I asked, my throat tight. Caleb hesitated. Maybe 5 grand over a couple years. He always paid me back, so I let it go. $5,000. The number hit me like a punch. I thought of our quiet dinners, Nathan joking about saving for a vacation we never took. Had he been funneling money to Lily? For what I stood pacing the small kitchen, my anger boiling over. Why didn't you tell me you're his brother? You knew he was hiding something. Caleb looked pained, his hands spread helplessly. I thought it was just guy stuff, Lauren. Tools, cars. I didn't know it was this. I wanted to scream. Nathan's secrecy wasn't just a quirk anymore. It was a betrayal that kept growing. I grabbed the photo and stuffed it back in my purse. I'm going to find out what he was doing, I said, my voice shaking. With or without your help. Caleb started to say something, but Elise appeared in the doorway, her apron dusted with flour. Everything okay? She asked, her eyes flicking between us. Caleb nodded quickly, but Elise's gaze lingered on me, sharp and knowing. Some things are better left alone, Lauren, she said softly. Let sleeping dogs lie. Her words sent a chill through me, like she knew more than Caleb was letting on. I mumbled a goodbye and left my mind racing. Back in the car, I gripped the steering wheel, replaying every moment I could remember of Nathan's time in that garage. The late-night phone calls, the way he'd lock the door even when I was home. I'd been so trusting, so blind. Now, with Caleb's half-answers and Elise's cryptic warning, I felt a fire in my chest. Whatever Nathan was hiding in that filing cabinet, I was going to tear it open and face it no matter how much it hurt. The garage felt like a tomb, the air thick with dust and betrayal. I stood over the scattered letters, their words seared into my mind, and turned my attention to the shelves. My hands moved on their own, ripping open boxes, tossing aside old spark plugs and oil cans. I was done wondering. I needed the whole truth, no matter how much it hurt. Somewhere in this mess was the answer to why Nathan had built a wall between us, and I was going to find it. I shoved a crate aside, revealing a tarp draped over something bulky in the corner. My heart raced as I pulled it back, exposing a safe, its black steel surface engraved with Nathan's initials. It was heavy, bolted to the floor, and locked with a combination dial. My breath caught. This wasn't just a hiding spot for tools or letters. This was something he'd gone to great lengths to protect. I ran my fingers over the cold metal, a mix of fury and desperation driving me. What was so important that he'd locked it away from me? I called a locksmith, Marcus, who'd done work for us years ago when Nathan lost his car keys. He arrived within the hour, his toolbox clanking as he set it down. This is a serious safe, he said, kneeling to inspect it. Whatever's in there, he didn't want it found. His words sent a chill through me, but I nodded. Just open it, I said, my voice tight. Marcus glanced at me, his eyes kind but cautious. You sure? Sometimes secrets change things you can't unchange. I swallowed hard, thinking of the letters, the photo, the money. I was already changed. Do it, I said. While Marcus worked, I paced the garage, my eyes scanning for anything I'd missed. A wooden drawer in the workbench caught my attention, half hidden under a pile of rags. I yanked it open, my hands trembling, and found a leather-bound journal inside. My stomach dropped. Nathan's handwriting covered the pages, neat and deliberate. I flipped it open, my eyes catching dates from the past 3 years. The entries were short but gut-wrenching. Met Elle at the diner, 7 p.m. She looked tired. Hate lying to Lauren. Another dropped-off package for Elle. Lauren was at book club. Felt like a coward. My knees gave out and I sat on a stool, the journal shaking in my hands. He'd documented every meeting with Lily, every time he'd slipped away while I was none the wiser. I read on each entry a fresh wound. One from last year mentioned a weekend I'd been visiting my mom, spent the day with Elle. She's stronger than I deserve. I can't keep doing this to Lauren. My throat burned with tears I refused to let fall. He knew he was hurting me, and he still chose her. I slammed the journal shut, my anger flaring. How could he write these things, plan his lies, and still come home to kiss me goodnight? I thought of our last anniversary, how he'd surprised me with a picnic by the lake, his laugh warm as he fed me strawberries. Had he been with Lily the day before? The thought made me want to scream. I stood ready to hurl the journal across the room when Marcus called out. Got it, he said, the safe's door creaking open. I rushed over my heart in my throat. Inside was a stack of cash bundled in rubber bands, a delicate gold locket, and a single envelope with my name on it. My hands froze. Nathan had left something for me, something he'd locked away with his secrets. I reached for the locket first, its chain cool against my fingers. I clicked it open, expecting a photo of us, or maybe Lily. Instead, it held a picture of a little girl, maybe 5 years old, with Nathan's hazel eyes and a shy smile. My breath stopped. Who was she? Why was her picture here, hidden with his cash and lies? I stared at the little girl's photo in the locket, my mind reeling. Marcus cleared his throat behind me, but I barely heard him. "I'll let you be," he said, gathering his tools and slipping out. The garage door clanged shut, leaving me alone with the safe's contents. I set the locket down, my hands unsteady, and reached for the envelope with my name. Nathan's handwriting, so familiar from grocery lists and love notes, now felt like a stranger's. I tore it open, bracing myself, but nothing could have prepared me for what I read. "Lauren, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry it started." My eyes burned as I sank to the floor, the letter trembling in my hands. Nathan confessed everything. Lily wasn't just an ex or a fling. They'd had a daughter, Mia, 5 years old now. My breath caught sharp and painful. A daughter. He'd been raising a child with another woman while we were married, while we were trying and failing to start our own family. The words blurred as tears spilled, but I forced myself to keep reading. He wrote about meeting Lily years ago before me and reconnecting during a rough patch in our marriage. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said, "but their affair led to Mia. He'd kept her a secret. He claimed to protect me, to save our life together. The cash in the safe, thousands of dollars, was for Mia's future college, medical bills, whatever she needed." He described his guilt, how it ate at him every time he looked at me, but he couldn't bring himself to tell me. "I loved you too much to lose you," he wrote. Loved me. The words felt like a slap. I dropped the letter, my chest heaving. I thought of the nights we'd lain awake talking about kids, how Nathan would smile and say, "One day, babe." We'd gone to doctors, tracked cycles, cried over negative tests. All that time he'd had Mia, a living, breathing piece of him, hidden away. I pictured her tiny face in the locket, those hazel eyes so like his, and a sob tore through me. He'd been a father, and I'd been clueless, building a future on lies. My mind spiraled to every moment I'd missed it. The weekends he'd disappear for work, coming back with stories about broken transmissions. The soft way he'd talk about kids like he was already living that dream. I'd thought it was hope, but it was memory. He was thinking of her, of Mia, while I planned baby names. The betrayal wasn't just Lily, it was this secret family, this whole life he'd built without me. I clutched my stomach, the pain so raw it felt like I was splitting apart. I stumbled to my feet, the letter crumpled in my fist, and looked at the safe. The cash sat there, neatly stacked, a monument to his double life. I wanted to burn it, to destroy every trace of his deception, but I couldn't move. My eyes fell on the locket again, Mia's photo staring up at me. She was innocent, a child caught in his mess, but knowing that only deepened my hurt. Nathan had chosen to protect her, to love her, while leaving me in the dark. I sank back to the floor, the garage spinning around me. The letter included Lily's phone number, a plea for me to meet Mia someday. The audacity of it, asking me to face his daughter, made my blood boil. But beneath the anger was something worse, a hollow ache, the realization that the man I'd loved had been a stranger. I pressed the locket to my chest, tears streaming, and felt my world collapse under the weight of his truth. I woke up on the garage floor, my cheek pressed against the cold concrete, the locket still clutched in my hand. The letter from Nathan lay crumpled beside me, its words a weight I couldn't shake. Mia's existence, her hazel eyes, Nathan's secret life. It all churned in my chest, a storm of grief and rage. But as the morning light filtered through the cracked garage window, something shifted. I couldn't keep drowning in his lies. I had to do something, anything, to take back control. I stood, my legs shaky, and tucked the locket and letter into my pocket. The cash in the safe stared at me, a reminder of Nathan's choices, but I left it for now. I needed answers not just from his words, but from the woman who'd shared his heart. Lily. Her number was in the letter, a challenge I couldn't ignore. My hands trembled as I dialed, half hoping she wouldn't answer. But she did, her voice soft and cautious. "Hello, this is Lauren," I said, my throat tight. "Nathan's wife. We need to talk." There was a long pause, then a quiet, "Okay." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in town, a neutral place where I could face her without the ghost of Nathan's garage looming over us. As I hung up, my stomach knotted, but there was a spark of resolve too. I wasn't just his widow anymore. I was a woman demanding the truth. The coffee shop was busy, filled with the clink of mugs and low chatter. I arrived early, choosing a corner table by the window, my fingers tapping nervously on the table. When Lily walked in, I knew her instantly, not from the photo, but from the way she carried herself, hesitant, yet composed, like she'd been bracing for this moment. She was shorter than I'd imagined, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes wary but kind. And then I saw Mia holding her hand, a small girl in a blue dress, her face bright with curiosity. My breath caught. She was real, not just a photo, and she looked so much like Nathan it hurt. Lily approached, her expression guarded. "Lauren," she said, and I nodded, gesturing to the seats across from me. Mia climbed onto a chair, swinging her legs, oblivious to the tension. "Thank you for meeting me," Lily said, her voice steady but soft. "I know this must be hard." Hard didn't begin to cover it. I wanted to hate her, to scream at her for stealing pieces of my husband, but seeing Mia's innocent smile made it impossible to lash out. "I found the letters," I said, keeping my voice low. "And the locket. And Nathan's letter about Mia." Lily's eyes flickered with surprise, then sadness. She glanced at Mia, who was coloring on a napkin, and leaned closer. "He never wanted you to find out this way," she said. "He loved you, Lauren. But he couldn't let Mia go either." Her words were a knife twisting deeper. "Loved me. Then why had he built a whole life with her?" I swallowed my anger, focusing on why I was here. "Tell me about the garage," I said. "What was he keeping there for you?" Lily hesitated, then spoke carefully. "He used it to store things for Mia. Clothes, toys, birthday gifts. He'd bring them to us when you were away. He said it was his way of keeping us separate, of protecting you, protecting me." The phrase felt like a mockery, but her honesty disarmed me. I saw the weight in her eyes, the grief she carried too. Mia looked up, her crayons pausing. "Mommy, can I have a muffin?" she asked, her voice bright. Lily smiled, brushing her hair back. "In a minute, sweetie." That small gesture, so tender, broke something in me. This was the life Nathan had chosen alongside ours, the one he'd hidden in that locked-up garage. I looked at Mia, her tiny hands gripping a red crayon, and felt a pang of something new. Not just pain, but a fierce need to understand her place in Nathan's heart. Lily met my gaze, her voice barely a whisper. "He was torn, Lauren. Every day. He wanted to tell you, but he was terrified of losing you." I clenched my jaw, fighting the tears. Terrified he'd lost me anyway, not by telling the truth, but by burying it. I leaned forward, my voice steady despite the ache. "I need to know everything," I said. "No more secrets." Lily nodded, her eyes glistening, and I felt a surge of strength. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to Nathan's lies. I was chasing the truth on my terms. Lily's words hung in the air, her admission that Nathan was torn between us both, a confession and a wound. I looked at Mia, her small fingers smudging crayon across the napkin, and felt a resolve solidify in me. I couldn't let Nathan's secrets define me anymore. I needed to face the garage again, to decide what to do with the pieces of his hidden life. "Thank you for being honest," I told Lily, my voice calmer than I felt. "I need time, but I'll be in touch." She nodded, her eyes searching mine, and I left the coffee shop, Mia's cheerful wave lingering in my mind. Back home, I stood in the garage, the safe still open, its contents a challenge. The cash, the locket, the letter, they were Nathan's choices, but I had choices too. I started sorting through the shelves, my hands moving with purpose. I found a cardboard box tucked behind a tire labeled Mia in Nathan's Sharpie scrawl. Inside were stuffed animals, a tiny pair of sneakers, and a stack of birthday cards, each one signed with his looping dad. My throat tightened, not just from betrayal, but from the love in those careful folds, the care he'd taken for a child I'd never known. I sat back the box in my lap and let myself feel the weight of it. Nathan had been a father here in this cluttered space while I'd been dreaming of our own kids. The pain was sharp, but I didn't push it away. Instead, I kept separating Mia's things from the tools and junk. Each item was a story I'd never been part of, but holding them made me feel less like a victim. I was rewriting the narrative, claiming the truth for myself. I called Hannah that evening, my voice steady despite the ache. "I need you," I said, no trace of our earlier fight. She arrived within the hour, her eyes red like she'd been crying too. "I'm so sorry, Lauren," she said, stepping into the garage. "I should have told you about Lily." I nodded, letting her words settle. "You were trying to protect me," I said. "But I need you now, not as a gatekeeper, as my sister." She hugged me, her grip tight, and for the first time in days, I felt anchored. We worked together, packing Mia's things into a new box. Hannah found a small photo album, snapshots of Mia at a park, Nathan pushing her on a swing. "He was a good dad," she said softly, and I didn't flinch. "He was," I agreed, surprising myself. Acknowledging it didn't erase the hurt, but it loosened something in me, a knot of anger I'd been carrying. I decided then the cash would go to Mia for her future, just as Nathan intended. But the locket that was mine to decide a piece of this story I could still shape. I pulled out a notebook and started writing a letter to Nathan, not to send but to release. "You broke my heart," I wrote, my pen digging into the paper. "But I loved you, and I'm choosing what comes next." I listed every hurt, his lies, his double life, the years I'd trusted blindly, but also the good, his laugh, his warmth, the way he'd made me feel safe. When I finished, I folded the pages and took them to the backyard. I lit a small fire in an old grill, the flames catching the edges of the paper. As it burned, I felt lighter, like I was letting go of his shadow. Back in the garage, I picked up the locket, Mia's photo glinting inside. I didn't know yet what I'd do with it, but I knew I wasn't running from her anymore. Hannah watched me, her expression soft. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for," she said. I didn't answer, just closed the locket and slipped it into my pocket. I turned to the empty shelves, the cleared space a testament to my choice to move forward. My eyes settled on the safe, now just a hollow box, and I stood a little taller, ready to face whatever came next. The garage was nearly empty now, its shelves bare except for a few stray bolts and a forgotten wrench. I met with Clara, the realtor, the next morning, her clipboard tucked under her arm as she surveyed the progress. "You've done good work here, Lauren," she said, her voice brisk but warm. "Buyers will love the space." I nodded, my fingers brushing the locket in my pocket. I decided to keep it for now, a reminder of the truth I'd faced. But the cash that was for Mia and I felt lighter, knowing it would serve a purpose Nathan had intended. I told Clara I wanted to donate Nathan's tools to a local charity, a carpentry program for kids. She raised an eyebrow, jotting it down. "That's generous," she said. "It'll make the place feel less heavy." Heavy was right. The garage had been a vault of secrets, but clearing it out had shifted something in me. I wasn't erasing Nathan, just making room for myself. Still, as Clara measured the space, a quiet guilt gnawed at me. Caleb didn't know about Mia yet, and the weight of that secret pressed harder now that I'd met her. That afternoon, I drove to Caleb's house, the locket in my pocket like a talisman. He deserved the truth, even if it hurt. He was in his backyard tossing a football with his teenage son, his laughter cutting through the crisp air. When he saw me, he waved me over, his smile fading as he caught my expression. "What's up?" he asked, wiping sweat from his brow. I took a deep breath, my heart racing, and asked if we could talk alone. He led me to the porch, where a wooden swing creaked under our weight. "Caleb." I started, my voice low. I found out why Nathan was borrowing money. His eyes narrowed, and I pushed on before I lost my nerve. He had a daughter. With Lily. Her name's Mia, and she's 5. The words hung between us, heavy and sharp. Caleb froze his hands, gripping the swing's chain. For a long moment he said nothing, his face a mask of shock. Then he let out a shaky breath, his voice barely audible. "A daughter." I nodded, pulling the locket from my pocket and opening it to show Mia's photo. Caleb stared at it, his jaw tight, his eyes glistening. "He never told me," he said almost to himself. "All those years, and he kept this from me too." The pain in his voice mirrored my own, a shared betrayal that made my chest ache. I'd expected anger, maybe accusations, but this quiet devastation was worse. "I'm sorry," I said, my throat tight. "I didn't know until I opened the safe." Caleb handed the locket back, his hands trembling. "Why didn't he trust me?" he asked, his voice breaking. I didn't have an answer, only the same question I'd been wrestling with. We sat in silence, the swing creaking softly, as the reality of Nathan's choices settled over us. I told him about the cash, how I planned to give it to Mia, and Caleb's eyes softened, though the hurt remained. "You're doing the right thing," he said, but his voice was distant, like he was still processing. He stood abruptly, pacing the porch. "I need to think," he said, running a hand through his hair. It changes everything." I nodded, understanding his need for space, but as I stood to leave, he grabbed my arm gently. "Lauren, thank you for telling me. I wish I'd known." His words carried a raw honesty that made my eyes sting. I'd opened a wound not just for me, but for him, and the weight of that truth felt like a stone in my chest. I drove home, the locket heavy in my pocket. Caleb's stunned expression burned into my mind. I'd taken a step forward, but the cost was seeing another piece of Nathan's legacy unravel. The garage, the house, Mia. They were all threads of a life I was only beginning to understand, and each truth I uncovered left me more exposed, more raw. I parked in my driveway, staring at the empty garage, and felt a quiet dread. What else would my choices reveal? I sat in my car for a long time, the engine off, the silence pressing in. Caleb's reaction had shaken me, his quiet hurt a mirror to my own. Telling him about Mia was the right thing, but it felt like I'd cracked open a wound neither of us was ready for. I drove back to the coffee shop where I'd met Lily, not for her but for Mia. I'd promised myself the locket would go to her, a small act to honor Nathan's love for his daughter, even if it tore at me. Lily was there, sitting outside with Mia, who was sipping a juice box. I parked and walked over, the locket heavy in my hand. Lily looked up, her expression cautious but open. "Lauren," she said, standing. Mia glanced at me, her eyes bright and curious, and I felt a pang. She was so much like Nathan in the tilt of her smile, the way she tilted her head. I knelt beside her, holding out the locket. "This was your dad's," I said, my voice steady. "He wanted you to have it." Mia took it, her small fingers tracing the gold. "It's pretty," she said, clicking it open to see her own photo inside. She beamed, and my heart twisted, caught between warmth and ache. Lily watched, her eyes glistening. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick. "Nathan always said you were kind." Her words stung, not because they were untrue, but because they reminded me of the man who'd lied to us both. I nodded, unable to speak, and stood brushing dirt from my knees. Lily hesitated, then spoke softly. "He talked about you all the time, Lauren. How you made him laugh, how you grounded him. I think he hated himself for what he did." I looked at her, searching for deceit, but found only raw honesty. It didn't erase the pain, but it softened the edges like a bruise starting to fade. "I'm trying to understand him," I said, my voice barely audible. "But it's hard." She nodded, her gaze dropping, and for a moment we were just two women bound by the same loss. I left them there, Mia clutching the locket, and drove home, my mind heavy. Hannah was waiting in my living room, a pizza box on the coffee table. "Thought you might need company," she said, her smile tentative. I hugged her, grateful for her effort to bridge the gap between us. We ate in silence at first, the crust crunching softly. Then she spoke, her voice gentle. "I saw Mia once, you know. Nathan brought her to the park. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to break your heart." Her confession didn't surprise me, but it hurt a quiet sting of another secret kept. "I'm glad you're here now," I said, meaning it. We finished packing the last boxes from the garage, old manuals and spare parts. Our movement slow but sure. Clara called later, confirming the house sale was finalized. I'd be moving to a small apartment soon, a fresh start I hadn't thought possible. It felt like progress, but the weight of Mia's locket of Caleb's shock lingered. I visited Nathan's grave that evening, the cemetery quiet under a gray sky. His headstone was simple, just his name and dates, but I saw him everywhere in the breeze and the rustle of leaves. I gave her the locket, I said, my voice low. "I'm trying to do right by you, but it's heavy." I waited as if he'd answer, but there was only silence. I knelt, tracing his name with my finger, and felt the ache of his absence settle deeper, a hollow that no action could fill. I moved into my new apartment a week after the house sold, a small one-bedroom with a balcony overlooking a quiet street. The walls were bare, but I hung a single photo of Nathan and me taken at a county fair, our faces smeared with cotton candy. It wasn't about clinging to the past anymore. It was about carrying the good parts forward. The boxes were unpacked, and for the first time in months, I felt a stillness, like the world was giving me room to breathe. I started volunteering at a community center downtown, a place that taught kids woodworking and basic repairs. The idea came from Nathan's love for building things, his hands always steady with a hammer or drill. I wasn't him, but I could share what he'd taught me: how to measure twice, cut once, how to fix what's broken. The kids were loud, their questions endless, but their energy pulled me out of my head. One boy, maybe 10, showed me a wobbly birdhouse he'd made, his grin wide when I helped him reinforce the joints. That smile stayed with me, a small light in the fog. One evening, as I swept sawdust from the workshop floor, I met Tessa, another volunteer, with a quick laugh and a knack for calming the chaos. We got to talking over coffee after a session, the kind of conversation that flows without effort. She told me about losing her brother to cancer 2 years ago, how she'd carried his favorite scarf in her purse for months, afraid to let go. "It's not about forgetting," she said, stirring her latte. "It's about making space for something new." Her words hit deep, like she'd seen the weight I'd been carrying without me saying a word. I nodded, sipping my coffee, and shared a piece of my story. Not the whole thing, just enough. How Nathan's death had unraveled secrets I hadn't expected, how I was learning to live with the truth. Tessa listened, her eyes steady, and when I finished, she reached across the table, her hand brushing mine. "You're doing the hard work," she said. "Not everyone can." I didn't cry, but I felt the urge, a quiet gratitude for someone who saw me, not just the widow, but the woman still standing. A few days later, a letter arrived from Lily, slipped into my mailbox with a return address I recognized. I sat on my balcony, the paper crinkling in my hands, and read her careful words. She wrote about Mia starting kindergarten, how she'd worn the locket to school and told everyone it was from her dad. Lily thanked me again, her tone warm but restrained, like she was still navigating our strange connection. I set the letter down, watching the streetlights flicker on below, and felt a calm settle over me. Mia was okay, and that mattered not just for Nathan, but for me too. I leaned back in my chair, the evening breeze cool against my skin, and let my thoughts wander. The pain of Nathan's secrets hadn't vanished, but it was softer now, like a scar that only ached in the rain. I'd spent so long fighting his lies, but here in this new space, I was starting to see myself again, not the betrayed wife, but Lauren, who could build birdhouses, laugh with strangers, and carry love and loss in equal measure. The city hummed below, and I closed my eyes, letting the sound wash over me, steady and sure. The next week I drove to Mia's birthday party, a small gathering at Lily's apartment. I'd agonized over the invitation, my thumb hovering over the RSVP, but something in me wanted to go, not for Nathan, but for the girl who wore his locket. I brought a gift, a set of colored pencils wrapped in blue paper, and when Mia tore it open, her squeal of delight warmed me in a way I hadn't expected. She hugged me, her arms quick and trusting, and I caught Lily's eye across the room, a silent nod passing between us. We talked later over slices of chocolate cake while Mia played with her friends. Lily shared small stories about Nathan, how he'd sing off-key lullabies, how he'd built Mia a cardboard castle once. I listened not with the old ache, but with a quiet acceptance. He'd been hers too in a different way, and that truth didn't have to break me anymore. "You're good for her," Lily said, her voice soft. "She talks about you." I smiled, surprised by the warmth in my chest, and realized I didn't need to be Mia's mom to matter to her. Back home, I invited Hannah and Caleb over for dinner, a simple spread of spaghetti and garlic bread. We sat around my tiny table, the lamplight casting soft shadows, and for the first time in months we laughed easily. Caleb told a story about Nathan stealing his bike as a kid, and Hannah chimed in with how Nathan had once tried to fix her car and flooded the engine. Their voices wove together, filling the room with a warmth I'd thought was lost. I didn't speak much, just soaked it in, grateful for the family I still had. After they left, I took a walk past our old house, now someone else's home. The new owners had painted the front door yellow, a bright splash against the faded brick. I stood across the street, hands in my pockets, and looked at the garage, its red paint still peeling. It wasn't mine anymore, and that was okay. The secrets it held, the pain it housed, had shaped me, but they didn't own me. I turned away, the night air cool on my face, and headed back to my apartment. In my bedroom, I opened a journal, its pages still crisp, and wrote a single line: "I'm enough." It wasn't a declaration, just a truth I was starting to believe. I set the pen down, the words settling in me like a stone in a river, steady and sure. The city hummed outside a distant lullaby, and I lay back, my breath slow, my heart quiet. For the first time, I wasn't running from Nathan's shadow or chasing his truth. I was just here, whole in my own skin, ready for whatever came next. I sit on my balcony most mornings now, a mug of tea warming my hands, as the sun creeps over the rooftops. The street below wakes slowly, delivery trucks, rumbling, neighbors waving as they walk their dogs. It's a small routine, this quiet start to the day, but it grounds me. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined this calm. Nathan's death, his secrets, the garage, they'd consumed me, each truth, a weight I thought I'd carry forever. But here I am, breathing easier, my heart a little less heavy. I've started painting, something I hadn't done since high school. The community center offered a class, and Tessa convinced me to try. My canvases are messy, all bold blues and jagged lines, but they feel honest. Last week I painted a horizon, the sky meeting a field, and when I stepped back I saw hope in it, not just loss. It's not about talent. It's about making something from nothing, about creating when I thought I'd only destroy. Work at the community center has become my anchor. The kids call me Miss Lauren, their voices bright as they show me their latest projects, a lopsided shelf, a carved wooden fish. I teach them how to sand edges smooth, how to trust their hands. One girl, Ellie, reminds me of myself at that age, all stubborn focus and quiet dreams. When she finished her first box, she hugged me, her pride infectious. I realized then that helping them build wasn't just about wood or nails. It was about showing them they could make something lasting even after a fall. I keep in touch with Lily, not often but enough. She sends photos of Mia sometimes, her gap-toothed grin lighting up my phone. I don't feel the old sting anymore, just a soft pride in knowing she's growing strong. I sent her a sketchbook last month, a nod to her love for drawing, and Lily texted that Mia carries it everywhere. It's a small connection, but it feels right, like a thread I've chosen to hold, not one forced on me. Hannah and I have found a new rhythm too. We meet for brunch most Sundays, splitting pancakes and trading stories. She's dating someone now, a shy guy who makes her laugh, and I love seeing her light up. We don't talk about Nathan much, but when we do, it's with a gentleness like we're tending a garden we both cherish. Caleb visits sometimes, bringing his son, and we grill burgers in the courtyard, their chatter filling the air. It's not the family I planned, but it's mine, and that's enough. I walk to the park near my apartment some evenings where the oak trees cast long shadows. I sit on a bench watching joggers and kids on scooters and let my thoughts settle. The pain of Nathan's betrayal hasn't vanished. It's still there, a quiet hum beneath my skin, but it's not the loudest thing anymore. I've learned to live with it, to let it sit beside the love I still have for him, the love that shaped me. I'm not the woman I was, but I'm not broken either. I'm just Lauren finding my way one slow morning at a time. Last night I found a small wooden box in the back of my closet, one I'd packed during the move, but never opened. Inside was a keychain Nathan gave me on our first date, a tiny silver star he'd won at a carnival game, his grin wide as he pressed it into my hand. I sat on my bed turning it over in my fingers and felt a quiet smile form. It wasn't the pain of his secrets that came back, but the warmth of that moment, the way his eyes lit up when I laughed. I set the keychain on my nightstand, not as a tether to the past, but as a reminder of who I'd been with him and who I was becoming without him. I've started running in the mornings, my sneakers pounding the pavement as the city wakes. It's not about speed or distance, but the rhythm, the way each step feels like a choice to keep going. One dawn as I paused by the river, the water glinting gold, I thought about the garage, how it had been a locked door in Nathan's heart. Opening it didn't just reveal his truths, it forced me to unlock my own. I'd been so afraid of losing him, of losing us, that I'd buried my own strength. Now I was learning to trust it, to lean into the woman who could face pain and still choose to run. The lesson came slowly pieced together through sleepless nights and small victories. Life doesn't hand you clean endings or perfect justice. Nathan's choices hurt me, but they didn't define me. What did was how I chose to carry them, not with bitterness, but with grace. I learned that love, even when it breaks you, leaves behind something worth keeping. It's in the way I teach kids to build, the way I listen to Tessa's stories, the way I smile at Mia's photos. It's in the quiet moments when I forgive Nathan, not for him, but for me, because holding on to anger was heavier than letting it go. I'm not whole yet, and maybe I never will be. But I'm here living a life that's mine, not a shadow of what was. The scars are part of me, but so is the light, the kind that comes from choosing yourself over and over, even when it's hard. I think that's what healing is, not erasing the past, but building something new beside it, something steady, something true. I'd love to hear from you. What's a moment in your life where you found strength in letting go? Share it in the comments below. It means so much to connect with you. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe to join me on this journey. Share it with someone who might need it, someone who's finding their own way through. Thank you for listening, for being here. Here's to healing, to new mornings, and to the quiet courage in us all.